You're listening to the Reinvest Podcast, where each Tuesday we will show you how to reclaim, reconnect, and refocus your life by bringing you the top real estate professionals in the industry. We'll pull back the curtain so you can implement these tools and tactics to build generational wealth. Your hosts, Garrett Gatton and Seth Ciminillo. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Reinvest Podcast, episode number 71. We have a lot of ground to cover today. Very excited for our guest. It's going to be some high-level stuff. It's going to be very tactical, but it's going to be deep at the same time. So let's jump right in. We are joined with Preston Brown. Preston, how you doing today, man?
Hey guys, any better? I'd have to be twins to fully enjoy myself.
I've never heard that one before. I'm going to have to catalog that one. That's pretty good. So, Preston, coaching business, you've got multiple businesses that you personally are an owner in and have started. Give us kind of some context or a summary of your entrepreneurial journey.
My entrepreneurial journey. Okay, well, I spent probably most of my life royally screwing it up. But luckily, you just have to get a few things right, sometimes even one thing right, to be successful. People go see my content online and they're like, "Oh, wow, he's doing well over 100 million in revenue every year." Yeah, don't judge the story by the ending, right? Like judge by the beginning, and you actually get more of the story. I started as a broke kid in a trailer park. My dad, he wanted the life we watched on TV, not the one that we had, and the smallest trailer on the block where we didn't even have running water at times, and he went to work. He moved into a little shed in the side yard day to day, quit his job. He was a metallurgical engineer by trade, not education, but by trade. But the guy could make anything. Wow. And he would work 6 a.m., sometimes 8 or 9 p.m. He didn't know a few things. He didn't know billing, charging, collecting. So he was undercharging. He wasn't chasing people for bills, but he was that honest, good-hearted entrepreneur. And I remember, like, this went on for 2 or 3 months before money got scarce, as it does for poor families. And of course, fight happened. I grew up probably 7 or 8 years old, nothing but love. And here comes mom telling dad, "Hey, you need to go collect what you're owed." And the ultimatum at this point, there was enough stress, was collect what you're owed or don't come back. And maybe at 7, I'm maybe 8, I don't remember how old I was exactly, but I remember the moment. I remember the frying pan getting thrown across the room, the drama of the fight, and I'd never seen anything but love. So I go with him in his old Ford truck, and we go up to a house not far from where I live now, actually. And my dad, 6'4", badass, big muscles, star football player on the football team, walks up and meets this guy that he could kill with a napkin. He meets this a guy had to be like 5'9". He was not a huge dude, but man, he could talk. And he knew business and he knew money, and he was twisting my dad up in knots. And I watched my dad standing there and I knew it was going to happen. Like everybody does, right? Like you meet that badass, you're like, "Oh, you could kill him with a napkin. He's going to take this guy out. We're going to get what we're owed. We're going to go home. It's going to be fine." But it didn't. Like the shoulders started moving forward, and, posture started changing, and asking went to compromising, went to, "Look, man, I'm not even going to be able to stay with my family if I don't take something home." A lot of money comes out of the guy's pocket. We drive to Albertsons. I guess it was a Smith's. It's an Albertsons now. And I drive home with ramen noodles on my lap. And I'm asking my dad the whole time, like, "What happened? What's going on?" And he wouldn't talk to me. But I man that didn't talk much, a little tear went down his eye. And he gave up on his dreams that day. He went and looked for a job the next day. And that was a defining moment for me. I learned that love was not the meaning of life. It was money that was the meaning of life. And I took that to heart. I became the most corporate piece of shit you will ever meet in your life. And I was transactional in every sense of the word. If you thought Donald Trump was the "you're fired" guy, man, you would have freaking hated me. I was a shit father. I was a terrible husband. I was exactly what people want to paint that top 1% as. Because I was trying to chase what I thought, was robbed from my dad. I was the little boy wanted to heal daddy's wounds. And this went on and on and on. I had 2 kids and a miserable wife. And in 2019, I had the worst day and the best day I've ever had. Didn't feel best on that day. But dad went to sleep in his favorite chair, and he went home. He didn't wake up.
So your dad passed away in 2019.
Yeah. Wow. And I got the call. My brother-in-law called and said, "Hey, I need you to get down here. Your dad's gone." And I knew what he meant, even though I asked, "Where did he go?" I knew like something had sunk, and the whole day had been weird. And so I drove over there crying my eyes out. I was pissed at God for taking him. I was pissed at myself for, getting rich, being ruthless and getting rich and never spending time with the man that I got rich because of, right?
Mm.
I was pissed at him for leaving. I mean, I was just pissed.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a beautiful moment because I got there and I truly believe, I mean, one of my foundational beliefs is your problems are your gifts, or they can be if you take the right meaning. As I got there and I saw my mom and I saw my sister and my whole family's there and they're broken. And one thing I did get out of being an entrepreneur was I was a warrior. I was not afraid of problems. And even though I'd never been more terrified or fearful in my life, I wasn't afraid of this one. I had to go help them. I mean, I didn't feel any value as a human being, but I had to help them. So I started remodeling my sister's house, help my sister, or my mom's house, help my sister buy a house. Like I was just doing anything I could, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to, in that time, reconnect with my family, realize that as I was sitting in this room, I had it all wrong. That thing I lost at 7 was the thing that I needed. Only now I needed it at a whole new level. And it wasn't the money is the meaning of life. It was the love is the meaning of life. Only now I had resources almost in abundance. I had success. And I could go back and not just become the person maybe I should have been at 7, but find a way to like honor the world and bless the world and show people a path where, hey, dude, that's soil, which is shit. Like, to be politically incorrect, soil is shit, right? But if you want to grow a flower garden, the lady's going to lean down and sniff the flowers. You got to plant seeds and shit. So that's soil
right.
that you grow out of. Like, you can spend 2 years in it. You can spend 20 years in it. I don't recommend the 20. I did that. Please learn from my mistakes and go through the shit as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
The 7-year-old needed to become the guy that he became. And the guy that he became needed to go back to the 7-year-old. You want to understand faith. Faith is always a paradox, right? Like, love is the meaning of life, but we're here, we're finite. Like, problems are gifts. Why did God put us here? We got to have some problems. We got to find a way to overcome them. We got to find a way to take the next level of the journey. And it's such a beautiful journey. So that's the story of how I got here and why I do it and why it drives me, bro. It's but a dad's boy. Wow.
That's pretty crazy. I've often thought, not to get too philosophical, but when things happen, just because we learn a lesson didn't mean we learned the right lesson. Right. And you walked away with something as that 7-8-year-old boy, and there was kind of a script in your mind that you kind of you saw, that was a lens that you saw things through from that time forward. And it's interesting that your dad's death was kind of that thing that redemptively, brought you back.
They call it a breakthrough because something has to break.
Yeah, right.
The belief, you ever look up the meaning of the word belief? It's a root word. It means be loved, right? Like, well, sometimes we have some unloving beliefs. Money is not the meaning of life, but you don't have to be ruthless to get rich. Mm-hmm. And I think you have an ethical obligation to get rich, because if you get rich, you can help a hell of a lot more people. Yeah. I want you guys rich. I want my kids rich. I want everybody to be rich. There's enough out there, but you could do it in a way where it's fun and compelling and awesome. And what's crazy, like kind of the second part of the story, is when I came back and I was done with the rules. I was done with all of that. I was willing to lose it all because I wanted to live the right way. My wealth went exponential.
Wow.
I went from millionaire to decamillionaire to centimillionaire. And it was way too quickly. Like, I acquired a new company. Like, we scaled it, but we were operating from a different metric. It was no longer this transactional give and take. It was more of a give and love and receive back. And I mean, I don't mean to get hippie, but energetically, that side of things works so much better in the business world than any of the transactional take that people like to try.
Yeah, it's that law of reciprocity. There are these kind of immutable laws in the universe, that I believe are God ordained that way. And when you honor those, there's a blessing that comes from it, right? And it takes faith to operate in those principles. Seth and I were having a conversation earlier about how we know some people that are making lots of money and are successful in one sense of the word, but they're doing it through very dishonest means, And I always say life's too short for that. It is just too short.
They're doing it, at the expense of their family, and, we all kind of were like, man, we would like to think that we're doing it for our family, but if you don't see your family, you're not taking care of your family emotionally and physically and with your time, then you can't be taking care of your family, because that's what ultimately they need.
Say that thing. People were like, "Oh, I die for my kids."
Oh yeah, we were talking earlier, and people always say, "I would die for my kids." Like, hey, don't question me. I would die for my kids. And then the classic, but would you live for them? Would you change how you were living? Would you change your habits physically, spiritually, mentally to live for your kids, to really set your family up for the best life possible? And that's when you kind of like look in the mirror and you look back at your own life and you're like, am I living that way? Am I doing those things?
Yeah.
Or am I just living for myself and trying to make the money, or whatever we're searching for, whatever we're driving for?
And
so
that's why I'm excited today, Preston. I think you're going to give us some fundamentals here of a way that your life can be a massive conduit of blessing to the people around you, right? Through business, through wealth, through using our minds, employing the right strategies at the right time. I know you've kind of coined like the 7 stages of entrepreneurship. We're talking with a real estate audience today, though. So I don't know if we can apply that to real estate, or if you want to break down the fundamentals of how a real estate investor can build wealth and do it just the wild ride.
Yeah. So the 7 stages of entrepreneurship, I mean, business operates in every single industry, and real estate's an industry. In fact, real estate's many industries, right? Like the housing industry is not exactly the same as the mortgage industry, is not exactly the same as the shopping center industry. I mean, there's so many different niches and industries within the real estate industry overall. And a business it's literally a communication and production machine. I mean, anything you or I do as a person, we're going to be, I'm going to say our effectiveness is going to be compounded if we have a vehicle to do it in. Like if you want to go around a racetrack, you can jog, or you can get in a vehicle, right? Like in a vehicle, an optimized vehicle, I mean, you can hit 200, 250 miles an hour around that same racetrack. It's probably a story you're going to want to tell your friends about. If you go to Vegas to that track where you can like rent all the hot cars, and you walk around it and you tell your friends about that, they're going to have a very different look on their face than if you tell about the Lamborghini and the McLaren, right? They're going to be like, what were you doing? Are you stupid?
Were you allowed to be there?
Vehicles are good in every business. They're good in every industry. It's just like, what vehicle do you need? When do you need it? And so there's investing and there's business. And the reason I do business in the real estate industry is because I can do business where I also invest. Well, if I've mastered business in an area where I can invest, and economically, like studying economics, because there's like foresight, right? Like where you're looking out ahead of you, like that's like looking through the front window of a car. And there's, forecasting, which is like having a map or a GPS that's getting you all the way there, right? So if you're aligned economically in your industry, you're a master in the business side, which is just problem solving. Like, what is a sale? It's a solution to a client or customer's problem. And your business or vehicle is a communication conduit that takes product from point A to point B to where that value function and that problem is solved. And there's that culmination, that sale, that transaction, whatever, right? Well, if that's the same realm that you actually invest in, holy smokes, like you're in so much alignment. Like there's 3 types of investments, right? Let's go through them. I mean, obviously there's thousands of categories of investments, but there's 3 main types. There's tax hedge investments, there's cash flow investments, and there's inflation hedge investments. And real estate is one of those that is all 3. Right. Like I bought a ton of apartment communities, like through syndicated deals 2 years ago. It was a little better because you actually got 100% bonus depreciation, as I'm sure you guys are aware. Like that's
which they are talking about keeping or re-upping the 100% bonus depreciation. So sick.
It's all going to depend on politics, but they need reinvestment, right? Yeah, and I didn't have to pay any income tax because I was able to put enough capital over there. Well, all of those properties now, or most of them, we might have 1 or 2 dogs in the mix because we did a bunch, but most of those properties are actually cash flowing, even given the higher rate, because we did good underwriting on the deals when we bought in, right? So even with some of the flexible financing terms, we're cash flowing. We're getting a return. We didn't pay taxes in a year. And what do you think is going to happen when the Fed drops rates? Do you think the government's going to stop spending money? Do you think that the crackhead that's been going since the 1970s is all of a sudden going to go clean and stop doing crack? I don't think so.
Right.
So inflation is a guarantee. Will those go up in value? And so can you use the 7 stages in the real estate industry? The answer is yes. And all the 7 stages, let me simplify them. All they're there for, and so that we don't have to go crazy into it in this podcast, because I'd rather give people like a high level, and then if they resonate with it, they can go get the low levels. Like they can go to my website or anything else, and they can watch the masterclass. It'll teach a problem-solving formula for businesses. And if you use that in conjunction with the 7 stages, which is about which problems are in each stage. A startup doesn't have the same type of problems as what I call like an operational entrepreneur that's kind of on the middle of a journey, or a megapreneur or an investor philanthropist. They all have different problems at different stages. If you look at like business like a staircase, well, people walk on a staircase. They don't stand still. So you're generally in 1 to 3 stages if you're normal walking a staircase, right? It's like walking 1 to 3 steps. But I've met entrepreneurs that are doing the splits. They're in all 7. Is that comfortable? Well,
No.
you might scrape your junk off if you slide a little bit. It'll hurt. So you got to kind of think about it like the purpose of the vehicle is to elevate up the stages, and you want to walk up the stages, but you solve the problem in the lowest stage you're in. So as you adapt and grow, that's all the 7 stages is, and it works in every industry across the planet.
So what do you mean when you say that your business happened to be in the place that you invest? Like for you personally, what's a business that you owned that is intertwined with real estate to be able to compound that?
So I'll give you a few. I just got out of one. I had 18 businesses. No, I got out of 2. So I'm in 16 businesses. I've downsized a little bit, but I've made the others bigger. So my largest company is production home building. Okay. But I also do hard money lending. We do wholesaling and home flipping. We own a title company, a property management company, a real estate brokerage, a home warranty insurance company. We make like materials distribution for all sorts of different things that builders use, et cetera, et cetera. So very vertically, horizontally aligned.
Wow. Yeah.
Like my home building company, because we have a very unique efficiency model, like most of the guys that are the same size as me have 80, 90 employees. I have 35.
Wow.
And we're far more efficient because of the way we do our costing and our analytics and our measurements of what the market needs are.
Mm-hmm.
Like when COVID hit, most of the builders stopped building, right? But we did our data on the economics of what was going on, and we figured people wouldn't want to sell houses if there was a virus. They wouldn't want people walking through their houses. Nobody lives in a builder's homes. They're empty.
Right.
Started more because we figured, well, economics is supply and demand. Yes, the government can fuck with that, but it's always supply and demand in the long run. That's all it ever is.
Right.
And if you take away supply, which is what was going to happen in the resale world, let's start as many houses as we could. And then we priced to the market demand. Like if we had capacity and capability of doing 20 units a month, that's what we could build. Then if we sold 30, we raised the price. We raised the price $150,000 per house over about 6 months.
Whoa.
Wow.
And by the time we got to about month 6, 7, 8, that's when all the inflation started hitting the news. That's when you saw lumber going up. So our margins went through the fucking roof. Everybody at first said, oh, you're greedy, you're evil, you're a scumbag. What? They had every name in the book.
Yeah.
But you know what? A lot of them are not in business. I rode the market. I surfed it like the wave it was. It was a wave. Now, you know what happened when all that inflation hit and materials went through the roof? My margin normalized. Holy shit. Wow. What the heck? If you followed the market would follow you. Yeah. So a little bit of anticipation.
Yeah.
Just smart. It's like seeing what's coming. If you're driving a car, you don't look out the back window unless you're a moron.
You hit something really good, and I want to unpack this because we always see, okay, everybody had access to the same data more than likely that you did, right? Or at least, smart enough to see what was going on. The difference wasn't you had this special knowledge they didn't have. It's that you acted on it when they didn't. So how did you kind of override that initial like knee-jerk reaction to retract and you just put the pedal down?
So there's always what they're telling you, and then there's what they want you to hear. You should listen to what they're telling you.
Right.
Okay? Like, and I don't want to get political here. I know poly means multiple and ticks is blood-sucking arachnids, so it's a root word. Okay? But everything Joe Biden is doing, for those that don't like him, is what he campaigned on. I'm not a fan. I don't like what he's doing. I didn't vote for him. But he didn't bullshit us on his opinions on energy. He didn't bullshit us on his opinions on business. He didn't bullshit us on any of it.
Yeah.
Now, there was what he wanted us to hear, which is what everybody went out and smoked their little fucking whatever it was they were smoking when they voted for this horrible inflation. I mean, you have to listen to what they're telling you, not what they're wanting you to hear. Okay.
Right.
So we look at data and we break down data to its refined core, which is, I mean, at least if we're going to go into economics, supply and demand. Okay. And then I looked at that supply and demand as to what had happened in the previous 10 years. And I think COVID was starting to hit the news in China in like late 2019, right? And then it was really in 2020 is like when we started feeling it, right? Well, what had happened before that? Well, what had happened before that was 2008, right? That was our previous recession, right?
Right.
What was the epicenter of the recession? The epicenter of that recession was mortgage-backed securities, which directly meant single-family homes, which means underwriting on loans was probably quality now because they've over-regulated and under-regulated areas.
Correct.
Is that fair?
Yep.
And then I looked at that and I said, well, who got fucked? Oh, in 08, it was the builders that got fucked because the government bailed out who? They bailed out the banks. Wealth follows production. The builders produced. Wealth does not follow lending. It follows production. We bailed out the lenders, not the fucking producers. That means, yes, poly means multiple. Ticks means blood-sucking arachnids. Stupid again, still stupid. So
Right.
What did builders do as a cause and effect reaction of this situation? They said, wait a minute, we got fucked. We met demand to the market based on everything going on that the politicians caused.
Yep.
And I can go into a history of all of it back to repealing the Glass-Steagall Act by Bill Clinton, okay, which spurred the market, it reconnected banks, and it caused the crash of 08 in Bush's years, but it was actually done under Clinton, like for better or for worse. I actually didn't think he was a bad president. I like both sides when they do good things, but we weren't ready for it. We gave a bunch of people in the secondary mortgage market that were used to driving a Hyundai, a Ferrari, and said, no training, fuck it, drive, have fun. And yes, shit went wrong. So we can track it all the way back. But what really happened, regardless of how we track it, is builders got screwed. They met market demands based on what politicians did when they repealed legislation. And anyone that goes and verifies is going to find it all. They're going to be like, holy shit, I can't believe that. And then builders said, well, I'm not going to build as much. Well, what happens when builders lower supply?
Yeah, demand goes up.
On average, we have needed 1.7 million, okay, new housing units, right?
Yeah.
What have we got? Well, about 500,000 less than that every year
Right.
since that time. So by 08, 09, you had a 5 million unit shortage. And what happens on the MLS? You're watching all the house inventory go down. It's going down further. And I'm like, we're going to be in for a market boom. Not there's a germ, there's a virus. I mean, that's all present too. That's what they want you to hear.
Yeah.
Be fearful. Worry about everything. Look, I'll tell you, like it says in the good book, I don't care if you're religious or not. I am, and I follow this, right? Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And if you actually fear God, you don't have to fear man. You don't have to fear the news media. You don't have to fear politics. You don't have to fear anything else. Like, that was an interesting verse I'd never understood before COVID, because if I fear him, I don't have to worry about all the other stupid shit everybody else says, right? So like, okay, I'll fear him, and then I don't have time to fear anybody else. So I get to look at the real data, not the bullshit data that they're trying to get me to hear. And I can see how supply and demand is going to be affected. I spiked inventory. Well, when I spiked inventory and I was the only one building for the most part, I mean, there were some that were still building their current inventory. Nobody was starting new stuff because what was everybody emotionally doing? They were like, oh God, the last crash was 08. This is going to be exactly like that. Only they were all dead wrong.
Right.
So translate this, okay, to now. All right. The difference between what they're telling you and what they want to, like, listening to what they're saying, but then not what they want you to hear. So how does that translate now?
So right now, and I'm going to give you what I'm investing in, okay? And then I'm going to give it to you as a why I'm investing in it. And I think it will make a compelling case that will really help a lot of your maybe more fearful investors that really want to produce, but they don't have the data because they don't know who to believe. And there's a different guru on every subject on YouTube and every other social media outlet. It's so full of shit. And it's just not backed up by facts. I am investing in anything with bedrooms. Why? Because the housing shortage that was present in 2019 compounded. I exited a bunch of them at the boom, and then I repivoted, reinvested, created machines to produce more of them. And I'm one of the few builders on the planet that has good enough margins and costing that I can literally turn around and corporately buy all of my own inventory if I want to. I don't. Wow. I sell some of it. I think I kept 40 last year, sold about 150, right? But I can corporately buy to reinvest in that, because supply and demand, regardless of what government's doing, will always win. And here is a fact that has proven true since we removed gold from the dollar back in the 70s. Okay. When we removed gold from the dollar back in the 70s, what did we do, guys? Like, Garrett, Seth, do you know what we did in the 70s? We took a hammer and a nail and we switched the nail out and made it a screw. But we didn't change anything about the hammer. You think it's going to affect the way it operates?
Right. Yeah, it's a totally different mechanism now.
Completely. We should have got a drill, but we didn't. We got a hammer for the screw. I mean, we can still get it in there, but it's a lot more work because of all those little ribs and edges, right? So watch this. There's been a new investing metric that is a gold mine, and people are not aware of it. And I don't know why they're not aware of it, because it's so fucking obvious. If you invest in the epicenter of the previous recession, going back to the time that gold was removed from the dollar and the money system changed, you will get filthy stinking rich. Right now, in this recession, we are in what I would call a rolling recession, since our government won't define words like recession or or race or gender. Let's just go with what we assume it fucking means, which things are recessing. They are going down.
Right. I can wrap my head around that. Yeah,
right. It's going down.
Seems
it's
sensible.
Fucking recessing. Okay, so if we can assume that recession means to recess, we're in a rolling recession, which means different industries and different times are going down. Okay.
Yeah. Which actually, that's helpful because it feels weird right now. It feels weird because there's these counter opposing kind of forces that are keeping something from happening that we all kind of see clearly. So that's a helpful definition, a rolling recession.
And we can go into the economics behind it if you want at another time. It's about a 4-hour conversation. And when we break open what's really going on behind the scenes, it's fascinating. Like, I've got all the data. It's amazing. But let me just make this point because it'll make it so clear. The reason I'm investing in housing is because the epicenter of the last recession was housing. And we can get into even a better question on another podcast or something, where what's the epicenter of this recession? Because when you figure out the epicenter of this recession, guess what you're going to know about the next investment opportunity? Ding, 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 right? But let's track it back. Like, let's actually track it back so we can prove it. If my theory is a fact, as I'm claiming, then let's go back to 08. What should you have invested in 08? Well, it would have been the epicenter of the previous recession. What was the previous epicenter?
Shoot, I was born in 1993.
.com bust.
Yeah.
Right? And so you could have bought Apple stock in the .com bust for what, $1? No, I'm sorry. In 08 for $1, $1.50 a share. Now remember, in the .com bubble in the 90s, all the bad operators really went out of business. So the good guys, the Apples, the Amazons, all those guys, by the time 08 hits, like even in COVID, in COVID, okay, like even in COVID, it was fascinating to watch what Apple did in COVID. Can computers get viruses if they're made in a lab in Wuhan? No. So why the fuck did Apple go down? Okay, like, why is the stock going down for a virus made in a lab in Wuhan? That doesn't even make sense. So had you invested in Apple stock, had you gone and bought $1 million in Apple stock with all the splits and the increases it's had, how much would you be worth today? Well, I've got centimillionaire friends that can give you the exact numbers, but it's dirty. So let's track it back and let's go further, right? So let's go to 01. What was the recession for 01? Was it the banking, savings, and loan debacle?
Oh, yeah.
So the previous one before that was the savings and loans. They basically took medical money out of real estate in a lending context through a banking platform called the savings and loans, right? So what could we have invested in 01? Banks. Had you gone and bought banks, bank stocks, open bank, anything like that, do you know how much money and power has gone into banks between 01 and 08? I mean, holy smokes. Why do you think the banks got the fucking bailouts in 08? Right? Yeah. So you would have invested in banks in 01, and even if they were worried about some of the banks in 08, didn't they all get bailed out? And I'm not talking about the investment firms. Okay, I'm talking about the banks specifically, because you got to look at the direct epicenter. Okay.
And so the premise is this: since the epicenter of the last recession was housing, now in the rolling recession that we're experiencing now, housing is what you're doubling down on.
Absolutely right. Because, and let me compound it for a few more reasons that people aren't thinking about. Was there during COVID an enormous migration from people in high tax states moving to low tax states with different politics?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Do we right now have an open border where people are coming across, and regardless of what your political opinion is on the situation, they're going to want a fucking roof over their head?
Right.
And let's be honest, even in the Holocaust, okay, Hitler, if he could have, would have just had everybody move out that he didn't want there. Okay. It's a lot less of a PR nightmare.
Right.
But it was unaffordable. So what did he do? Horrible things, right? You're not going to move 25 million, 30 million people out.
Yeah.
There were estimates of 12, 15 million people before any of this open border stuff started. And you're getting, that we know of, 3.5, 5 million a year? Like, really? You're gonna
right.
How many buses do you know of that can fit 25 million people on them?
Yeah.
Ain't gonna happen. You're gonna have every bus company in America busy for 20 years. And you have to find them, and you have to locate them, and you have to convince them. You have to get them to divorce the people they married. I mean, like this is
that's interesting.
So, and that's not even in the numbers.
Right.
Are there things going on in the Red Sea right now that could affect supply chains?
Yes.
Are there multiple geopolitical crises?
Yeah.
Like, and by the way, while I disagree absolutely with how our border is going, and I can see what the left says about, like, or the right says about, they're all military age young men coming across. That's true. And that is scary. There probably will be some reactions there. But are they also working age men that don't have a typical American education, that aren't going to fit into our tech entrepreneur doctor class category, and maybe helping us build housing?
Well, listen, I will vouch for that. So in our area, we're Northwest Ohio. We have a large influx of Haitian population that has come. I mean, so Springfield, I just heard this statistic this last week. Springfield's like, what, 50,000 people? And 10,000 Haitians have migrated into Springfield. That's a massive population shift in one community.
Yeah.
And we felt that in Lima.
How many of those Haitians are starting to go into the construction field right now?
Yeah, and it's manual labor, factory jobs. Because for them it's a huge upgrade from where they were before.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't want to sound like I am pro illegal immigration. I am not. I think it is the dumbest idea on the planet, because the negatives caused by the impacts of not vetting people coming into a country, a sovereign country with borders, is going to outweigh the positives for a decade. Okay. But there will eventually, and I wish our politicians could talk, because if they could talk and figure out immigration, we would solve a lot of problems. But we have such a housing shortage, and we're going on the same road that Canada went on. Okay. Now, would I be jumping in if you guys called me and said, hey, we're with the Reinvest podcast, we really want you to invest in office buildings? I would laugh at you and be like, I don't even want to be on your stupid show.
Shoot, that was my next question. That's funny.
But so you have to look where the niches are that the riches are in.
That's why you said bedroom. So you're talking commercial, residential housing.
I think anything with bedrooms. And of course, like right now, I'm not as motivated by multifamily as I was 2 years ago. Okay. Because the rates are high. There's not enough deal flow. The cap rates they have not gone up enough to justify the new interest rates. It's the tax benefits have 40% of them are gone. So you almost have to include a private equity with you to offset it and increase your bonus depreciation, which adds additional risks that may not be worth it, right? So I'm less bullish on multifamily right now until the Fed drops rates. Now, if the Fed comes down 2 points over the next year and a half, I'll be buying or building multifamily. I'm buying a few pieces of land that I think could be good multifamily opportunities, and I might start them in the next 6 months or a year. I'm buying a ton of housing units because they're easy to dispose of.
Yeah, they are.
The market they sell. And the Fed is going in the right direction rates-wise. They're talking about dropping rates. They're talking about quantitative easing even coming back. Now, we did get some bad inflation numbers today. So the inflation numbers that actually came out today were a little high. You annualized them. I think core would have been 4.6. So went a little bit in the wrong direction. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that rate drops will be a little slower than we expected, and
Right.
that means our economy is a little healthier. Which also, if you're an investor listening to your podcast, means that we're not at the end of the window of your opportunity to buy. Some people are like, oh, I wish they dropped tomorrow so I could sell more. No, that's stupid. Right now is the time for planting so that you can harvest more. You have a little more planting time. You really make money. You collect in the harvesting, you make in the planting. You have more planting time.
So, and we were talking about this too, you know, a lot of people have gotten into real estate in probably the last 5 to 7 years because it's been sexy, it's been broadcasted, it's been mainstream. And so a lot of investors, and I would throw myself into that boat as well, have not been through a true down cycle. And so it's like you want you want your cake and eat it too. You kind of want the high of like a hot market, but not the pain of that retraction, which is actually opportunity to buy. And like, it's never going to feel pleasant to buy in a down market because it feels like money comes harder. Banks aren't lending as much. Interest rates are high. You feel like white knuckled with cash because cash is king. So it's always counterintuitive, but that's where people make the strides ahead.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's good.
Let me clarify buying in a down market. Okay. You should be buying, but don't be buying stupid, because there are still stupid people that want to sell at peak prices, right? Buying in a down market, like, I'm not telling you to go buy the high in a down market. What I am telling you is your first love in business should be efficiency. And if you can create a program, a model, a system where you can acquire leads, negotiate well, acquire distressed sale assets right now. Like, I am buying from any wholesaler that'll sell me products. I am buying my own inventory that I build. I am buying anything I can get. If I can cash flow or lose just a little with the optimism that the Fed will drop at least a point in the next 12 months, which I think is likely.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm going to take it. Am I going to go buy a bad deal just because it's low? So I'm not saying buy anything. Obviously, still do your due diligence and work harder than the next guy. Because right now, everyone's falling off. The people are not thinking it's as sexy as they did before.
Right.
And this is your opportunity to get efficient and buy.
Yeah, that's a good disclaimer.
We're going to jump into our smaller pocket segment here. So, Preston, go ahead and tell us about one of your worst deals. It could be a deal in real estate, could be a deal in business. What was a terrible thing that had happened? What went wrong? And then, most importantly, what did you learn from it so that way our investors and our audience can avoid the same mistake?
Preston looks like a guy that's never had a debacle in business. Just kidding.
Oh, man. So, I mean, my worst one, probably not the most painful, because I had one that was more painful when I was younger, but I was a much smaller business. But I have one that's sexier as a stupid story right now. Okay. Yeah. So, market was booming. I acquired 60 lots from a land developer who had a little bit of a sketchy reputation. I had a friend of mine that was invested with him, and he was a guy that I had a lot of trust for. He mentored me, and he overall was a very good part of my life. And so I trusted this kind of sketchy guy. There was a lot shortage. I really needed lots. This is for my home building company. And I closed on the lots. The neighborhood wasn't quite done. There was some reasons to question, but it was that time. I was an optimist. Well, August of this year, we got a phone call from a gal that does some of our inspections for the city. She's a third-party inspector. She's like, hey, we're shutting down this neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
The city. Yeah. I have 60 homes going up at this point in time. They'll all be complete with, right about now. Like 60 homes, they're shutting down the neighborhood. They're not going to allow permits, nothing. $12 million of my cash or debt loans is in this deal. And I was like, oh my God. I'd never had a problem over $10 million, right? But here's 60 houses. Nobody can move in. The neighborhood's not done. There's not that many things left to get it done, but it's not done. And man, I went into freak out mode. Now, I'm big enough that I can afford this. I could write a check and pay off all or most of it. But that doesn't change that the first time you have a problem of this size, you're not looking at it from the eyes of the man you are today. You're
Nice.
looking at it from the eyes of the scared little kid that just had the worst moment of his life, that doesn't have the resources or relationships that you have now. And I freaking freaked. Like, I walked downstairs. I was literally on a houseboat, a yacht on Lake Powell with a bunch of millionaire friends. Someone who just sold a huge company to a real famous guy and exited for like 100 million or some crazy amount of money. I don't even know how much. But I'm like, oh shit. So I went down to my little room in the houseboat and I just sat there and cried. And eventually I started reading some of my Bible that was on the boat, and I kept turning to pages, man. It was like, if I take care of the birds in the air, how much more would I do for a single hair on your head? And all these different pages I flipped to randomly. And it was
Super
like,
stuff that was irrelevant, right?
yeah, just completely irrelevant things. And then I was like, okay, man, I need to strap on a pair. I need to figure it out. I need to go in. And it is, we're almost out of it now. Actually, we're finishing it up. We've got a contractor finishing the neighborhood right now. We've been in a crazy litigation. It's actually cost me 150, 200,000 a month of interest since that time. I've still got 60 complete homes, but it looks like they're going to have the neighborhood finished inside of the next 3 to 6 weeks. And we'll be able to close our buyers. I'm probably going to keep about 30 homes as rentals too. So which I needed some more inventory. So that it wound up being a good thing and a good lesson in what's possible. But it all could have been avoided by simply following a standard process, which we had in place that I completely ignored. Everything goes through the legal team.
Wow.
I ignored a contract that had some stuff. I trusted a friend that frankly had made a bad investment. I allowed pressures from a boom market to push me. There were other good builders in the neighborhood. There's 13 of us in the neighborhood, so I'm not the only one. Like, everybody went in there. And but it was just, now it wound up being a gift, because a lot of the guys, they didn't tell their banks, they didn't tell their lenders, they didn't tell their other relationships what was going on.
Wow.
But which you wouldn't want to, right? Like, your natural be like,
Keep
I don't want
it
to tell
tight-lipped. This will blow over before it's a problem.
I went and I shared all the facts with everybody involved. So it actually wound up being a good thing for me, because a lot of my banks, my relationships, my lenders, they were like, holy shit, okay, well, he's still making a ton of money. He's still successful. Yeah, he has a little $12 million hickey. It'll go away within this time frame. I de-risked it completely. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that we de-risked it with, right? And I communicated everything. Well, it improved my relationships with my bankers. They now call me for all the market data and information, because they love the transparency. It improved my relationships with other builders in the situation. So, worst situation, did something dumb, got in it.
Wow.
Outcome, man, you need that soil, you need that shit so that you can grow some nice flowers, right?
Yeah. So on the backside of that, you think you're going to be able to actually end up selling those homes or whatever? I mean, was it something with how it was? It must have just not been compiled right, the lots, or zoned right, or what?
I mean, there were several failures, if I'm honest. Yeah. So we didn't trust our gut. I mean, we met the guy and there was something off. Okay. We didn't send it through legal, which we've never not done it, because we had a friend involved and we trusted our friend and our gut. Like I'm not blaming him. I'm responsible. I still signed on the dotted line and bought everything. Yeah. And then, look, we will get out of it. Like, I'll be $1 million, $1.5 million less wealthy when I'm out of it, but then we'll sell the houses and we'll make a few million bucks. So I think it'll probably wash out, but it was more of it was unnecessary to get into.
Yeah. Right.
Could have been avoided.
Yeah. I allowed excitement to let what could have been $12 million hickey on my life.
Yeah.
End in my lap.
Wow. Man, there's a lot of good stuff there. Stuff that you could have learned on the front end, but then how it was redemptive. You don't know what's going to come out until you're squeezed. And so how you handled that situation was kind of indicative of probably a lot of lessons that you've already paid the quote unquote tuition into that set you up to know how to handle the situation. So good stuff, dude. All right, man. Hey, we're going to go into what we call our little nugget. Preston, this episode's been filled with a lot of advice, a lot of takeaways, but give us something tried and true that has guided you in your professional development.
So I'm going to say maybe one of the most, I'm going to give you a few nuggets, and I like combining things because I think they're important. The word problem comes from the word emblem. I mean, a stop sign is nothing more than an emblem until you blow by it. That's the problem, right? And people misunderstand completely the word ownership. So maybe the advice I'm giving is follow the definition of words. They're there for a reason. I mean, when people call the formation of words spelling, it's almost like you cast spells into being if you know what the word means, right? And so we misunderstand ownership. Like we don't realize that ownership is not about possession. Okay, ownership begets responsibility, and responsibility begets possession. And when you understand and can fully comprehend ownership, nothing can possess you. Like if so, maybe the last piece that I'm throwing on this nugget. People go watch all these movies about exorcism and demons and all of this different crap. And even the most powerful demon, if you want to look up the meaning of his name in ancient Aramaic, Satan, that word in ancient Aramaic means nothing more than crazy thought. So if you think of Jesus sitting in a fast, a 40-day fast, and Satan coming and saying, hey, why not turn this bread into stone? Get behind me, Satan. Get behind me, crazy thought. What really possesses people? Crazy thoughts, where they have not taken the responsibility, the ownership, obligation, responsibility to understand what was really going on so that they could possess it. What you don't possess and you are not responsible for can possess you.
That's good.
Confucius say. Man, listen, I didn't think we were going to get so deep today. That's awesome. We always relish that because here's, at the end of the day, our culture wants the quick fix, the easy out, the little 10-second sound bite that you can get that's going to revolutionize your life. And life doesn't happen that way. They're foundational, tried and true principles, and you got to work them long enough. So good stuff. What has been one of the best resources in your business development?
So I've got to say the best resources in my business development has been books. And I mean, you could do Audible, you could do regular books. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to give you a few specific books. And I'm a believer in seminars. I'm a believer in, going out and the rah-rah. The rah-rah is great. But if you have the rah-rah without the aha, that's not self-help. That's shelf-help. Okay.
That's good.
So people love the excitement, but they don't get the wow part. And I read the biographies and autobiographies of John D. Rockefeller. I read the biographies and autobiographies of all the different robber barons, the Andrew Carnegies, the Jay Goulds, like the Pierpont Morgans. And I started realizing, I was like, oh shit, I have this in common with this guy. I have this in common with this guy. And like you start resonating with little things that each of them did. Then I went and I read, okay, well, let me learn about Steve Jobs. He's the robber barons in the old days. We now have new robber barons. We just don't call them robber barons. Maybe we're not dicks like we were back then, right? But you also have Elon Musk, you have Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
You can start reading about these guys. What you're going to find is they're the same guys as the one back there. They have the same talents, the same gifts. And I love data. I love patterns. I love trends. Trends are your friends. Every stockbroker will tell you that. Well, what if you went and just measured the trends of the greatest men that ever lived, and the greatest women too? I mean, you can go look at the Oprahs, you can go look at the amazing women of the world as well, but like go find the trends that made them who they are, that gave them to live on purpose in their God-given purpose. And there is nothing can stop you from having an abundant life. Like it's been those books.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's good.
Sweet. All right. How can people find out more about you and follow your success?
So my social media, all of it is the Preston Brown. I wanted to get Preston Brown, but there's this really handsome black guy. He's a football player. He's way more buff than me. He has my same name. Like people even now, like when they're like, oh, dude, like I came to your event. I thought you were black. And I'm like, no, that's a handsome football player. I'm a big-headed nerd. Sorry. But like, so I had to go with the Preston Brown. But like my Facebook, my Instagram, my TikTok, all of them are the Preston Brown. I put out tons of free content there. I think everybody should get rich. Making money is easy. I mean, God made us in his image, right? Like he's this community of souls. We're a community of cells. He created, we create. It's not, he didn't say, go earn and multiply. No, he said, go be fruitful and multiply. He made us as creators. We're supposed to make money, not earn money, like go create. And so, I give out tons of tips. I've got tons of formulas, tons of hacks. I mean, you can go to my website, prestonbrown.com, anywhere, and just, use the information. Go become successful. Go set your family free. Go have the fucking life that people watch on TV, not the one that mediocrity in America wants you to live.
Yeah, well, so if you're looking for the American dream, sounds like that's not what you offer. So this is something much better. And we'll put all those links in the show notes here. Yep. Preston, thank you for taking your time. And we got into a lot of different stuff today. I think it's going to be of value to our listeners. It's been awesome.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you. Y'all have an amazing day on purpose.
As always, excited that you joined us on another episode of the Reinvest Podcast. If this episode added to your tool belt or left you feeling inspired, go ahead and share it with a friend. Stay tuned every Tuesday for new episodes. And if you want to get in touch with us, go to our LinkedIn or Facebook profiles and shoot us a message. Move farther, reach higher, and grow deeper. See you next time.